Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. We're going to talk baseball with our national baseball expert, David Brown. Dave, how are you?
Hello, Andy. I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
Well, and we should do this NPR style in our support.
That's right. I'm also thinking of sweaty balls right now when I talk like this. The Saturday Night Live skit. I'm not thinking of your sweaty balls. I'm talking about, anyway.
I appreciate that. Both of those things. Oh, so what do we got? 5 weeks left in the baseball season?
Too many.
4.5?
Yeah, I think about 5, yes.
I think the Cubs have 29 games left. So it seems like a good time to look around the standings and see what, if anything isn't decided yet. Because that's supposed to be the beauty of this, expanded playoff thing is all these extra teams are going to be in contention, and, fans in far-flung cities like Kansas City might still be in it.
Is
Kansas
it
City
that far
kinda
flung?
is.
I guess it is, yeah.
Kansas City kind of is, right? They got hot and edged their way into the wild card.
A little bit, yeah. I was supposed to write a story kind of about this because they played the Rangers last week, or maybe. Time is an issue for me right now, Andy. But when they played the Rangers, I thought it was interesting that the Royals were kind of staying in the race. The Rangers were kind of falling out, and they had both bought at the deadline. So I found that interesting, that one team was maybe doing a better job of, and the Royals have since made a little bit of a push, even was doing a better job of treading water than the Rangers. So the Royals they have some hitting in the second half, and I think that's why they're able to win a few more games, because they decided, you know what, let's hit a couple home runs and see what happens.
Let's score once in a while. Let's see if we can win. Well, there they are. So the American League wild card, they are 3 games behind the Mariners, which puts them about 4.5 behind the Astros. Basically whoever doesn't win the West is in the wild card hunt, and the Royals are the closest team to them. And look at this, they have a positive run differential.
They do.
Ooh, maybe for the first time all year. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's been around there, but yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people kept waiting for the Rangers to they'll get their act together, and then they really just haven't ever gotten their act together.
They had I think they won 9 out of 10 at one point. This was around the time of the deadline, maybe a little bit before. And then, they didn't make huge buys at the deadline, but the Rangers we're speaking of, but they, they added some players, some people that people know. And, but they haven't, they've had colossal things go wrong with different parts of their team at different times of the year. Recently they haven't been hitting. Earlier in the season, they couldn't pitch. For a while, the bullpen disappeared. Marcus Semien had a terrible start to the season, was really good in the middle, and then he stopped hitting. So, Corey Seager has had a very good season, but he's also spent his time on the injured list. So they never, and you think that you got a guy like Bochy managing, and all of the I's are going to be dotted and T's crossed, and they're still just kind of flailing away a little bit. So it just goes to show you never know. There's my analysis. How awesome is that?
No, it's good. When you mentioned Bochy, it reminded me of something happened the other night. I was watching MLB Big Inning and sort of hopping around from game to game, and a Rangers pitcher gave up a 3-run homer. And the way they shot it was, you see the batter hit the ball, and it's clearly going to be a home run. And then they cut to him jogging up the first baseline, and Bochy is already out of the dugout going to take the pitcher out because it takes him so long to get to the mound. You see the batter halfway to first, and Bochy has a foot on the grass.
Right.
He's heading to the mound. The ball hasn't even landed yet, and Bochy is like, well, I better get out there and change the pitcher. It's going to take me 10 minutes to get there.
That's a pretty good Bochy impression you just did right there. That was
I thought
good.
so. Yeah.
I believe he's had all of his joints replaced.
Yeah.
I think every one of them has been replaced.
It might be time to replace the replacements because he's
True.
he looks
You
like
know, I,
he has to creak when he walks, I would guess.
I you know, I've talked to him for years, but I'm not somebody who can ask the question. So you coming back next year and get a, I don't know. That it could be this could be it. His contract is up, and they brought in. He was on the Mar. He was on. He's your favorite Cardinal, and he was on the Marlins.
Oh, Skippy
Skip
Schumacher?
Skip Schumacher's in the front office somewhere lurking.
Yeah.
So that was like the thought that Rangers go out with another World Series or a championship, and Bochy can retire and head off in the sunset, possibly on a horse because he does that a
Mhm.
lot. He's very
Sure.
cowboy like, and then Skip Schumacher can come in and do his thing. So,
Well,
but
that
I don't know. I don't have an idea of. I feel like if the Rangers don't get hot here and make a run for the playoffs, that they might feel like, oh, we got unfinished business, and maybe go for one more. But with Bochy,
that's a lot like people wondered why Will Venable would take the White Sox job when he was the bench coach of the Rangers, and
yeah,
Boch could totter off at any moment and leave you in a much better position. But
and
I guess
like
if somebody offers you a managerial job, there's not that many of them. You
there's
probably should take it.
a lot to that. There's also, the whole would I would give myself some pause if the White Sox asked me to work for them. I don't know that I would just jump at that. That would be one of the teams, the Marlins. That's another organization that
Yeah.
I go, I don't know. So yeah, I can see where there might be a hesitation or people would wonder, why Venable would give that up. But like you said, there's only 30 of these jobs, or perhaps soon 32.
Yep.
And yeah, so take it while you can. And Venable, I guess we're jumping around a little bit, but Venable's done a nice job. I see people complain a lot about his, pitching changes and that kind of thing. And, why they don't play Teal and Caro all the time with catcher, and they just brought in a third catcher so they could do that. So, but as far as like resetting the clubhouse and doing that kind of manager stuff, looks pretty good so far. So, um, we'll see about the technical aspects of managing, but
Yeah.
so yeah,
Well, you're right, but it shows how low that bar is that they're 48 and 85,
it's
29
funny,
games out, and it's like he's doing a pretty good job.
and it seems. I mean, last year should have felt dreadful, and it did because they were so bad.
Yeah.
It just seems like okay, this is a little bit more of a normal bad, and it's they have a couple winning streaks and they've scored. The offense has been pretty good in the second half, and some other decent things have happened. So, last year nothing good happened as far as I could tell, as far as I
No.
remember. But they had Colson Montgomery come up and hit a little bit, and Luis Robert has had a good second half. He's hurt now. He's probably done for the season. And they've had some, they've brought in some Rule 5 guys. Shane Smith has had some decent. There's something happening with the White Sox. Like, are they going to be contenders next year? I don't see, like, for the division. I don't see that, but at least they've they must have gone through the worst part. So, but it is funny how like, hey, you're not doing bad. Oh, you're like 40 games under 500. So
Pythagoras is still not a big White Sox fan though. Their expected win-loss is 10 games better than their real one.
really,
58 and 75 instead of 48 and 85. That's
well,
a lot, even
that's the
for. I
kind
mean,
of thing that
maybe Pythagoras can't handle like a team gets so bad that like the margin of error goes up when you're going to be like a
it's supposed to
57 win
stay
team. It's
with
like
you. But yeah,
Pythagoras is like, I don't know. Screw this. Doesn't even look like baseball to me.
what was it? Was fifth grade when we read Damon and Pythagoras, the Greek tragedy? Is that? I'm not even really making that joke very well, but um, yeah. So, well, that makes me. If it's really 10 games worse,
Yeah.
I don't have that page open, but
Their
then that
run
makes me
differential.
question Will Venable's in-game strategy.
Their run differential is better than the Orioles, who have 12 more wins.
Right. I see.
But
Run differential's funny though. Look at we were just talking about the Rangers and the Royals. The Rangers have 67 losses, the Royals have 65, and there's 78 runs
yeah.
difference in their run differential. So take it with a grain of salt.
Oh,
And but measure the
Pythagoras.
salt so we have
Pythagoras is
accuracy.
not a fan of the Rangers either. They should be 77 and 58, according to him. Like
Apparently
they should
Bochy's lost
be,
it.
they would be 4 games up in the West if Pythagoras was managing the Rangers. Is that how that works? That's how this formula is calculated. If
Pythagoras
Pythagoras was your
Schumacher.
manager, this is what your record would be. If you had a
That's
guy
how I
in a
would do it in the
if you had
edge
a
of
guy in
it.
a
Yeah.
toga and sandals in the dugout coming out to change pitchers,
I
I'd
can
pay to see that.
envision Bruce Bochy in a toga.
Bruce looks like he would enjoy a toga. Like, he basically wears a dress. That pullover that he wears is, even for a very tall, large man, is basically to his knees. He thinks
He's the
he
largest
thinks he's
man.
wearing a toga.
He's got the biggest head for sure
Yeah,
and a big body, and that's why all his joints don't work.
yeah. He's structurally unsound to hold that head up.
Born in France, by the way,
Oh,
on a
good for
military
him.
base.
So the other races in the East, the Blue Jays 4-game lead over the Red Sox, 4.5 over the Yankees. The Tigers have an 8.5-game lead over the Royals. And the Astros and Mariners actually have a race, 1.5. Astros are up over the Mariners. Same thing. It keeps feeling like, all right, the Mariners are finally about to take command of this, and then they don't.
Right. I don't know that there are actually, I mean, when I say there are no good teams in the American League, I don't quite mean it that harshly, but I don't care for any of these teams, actually.
No.
I don't, nobody gets me excited. The best, I think the Dodgers and the Padres are probably, and the Brewers. I don't know if I believe in the Brewers, but
Well, we're gonna get to that here.
sorry,
No, it's
jumping my
fine.
gun.
Phillies, who I think had a chance to go into New York and put away the Mets, and managed to lose the first 2 games of that series. So that's a 4-game lead in the East. They are also Zach Wheelerless now for the rest, which
Right.
is a big deal. He's not just a really good pitcher; he's a great postseason pitcher. So that's bad. In fact, the Mets have gained 3 games on the Phillies in the last 3 days. It was 7. Now it's 4. In the Central, the Brewers have a 6.5-game lead over the Cubs. This is how confident the Cubs are that they can still catch the Brewers. Boog and JD were talking about it during last night's 12-3 loss to the Giants. Do you know how many innings you typically have to play the Giants for them to score 12 runs? It's like 20. This is when the game was still close at the beginning. In fact, I believe the Cubs had the lead, and Boog was like, "Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be great to catch the Brewers win the division, but does it really matter? I don't think it really matters." It's like, in other words, it's not going to happen. So why are we worried about it? And then in the West, the Dodgers and the Padres. And then there's kind of maybe a wild card race, but the Reds would have to show more interest in it, and then they seem to want to. So they're 4.5 games behind the Mets. So it kind of feels like we have the AL West, the NL West, and is that it? That's maybe it. Unless the Royals keep it up. Then you throw the American League wild card in there too.
I don't see that happening, but I don't see them getting close to the Tigers, but yeah, I don't. None of the teams in the AL East really do anything for me. Like, you don't want to play them in the postseason or watch for them in September. So I think we'll see. I mean, it might be an interesting race. I just don't think they'll be great teams. And the Tigers are all right, and the Mariners have a good story. I like Cal Raleigh. They never won a World Series. From that standpoint, that's. But I mean, we're 5 months in, and they're all really boring teams. So
The Mariners are the only team that has never been to the World Series, right?
yes,
Everybody else has at least been there once, including the Rockies and the Brewers.
Harvey's Wallbangers.
But yeah, so I guess a good point. Who's like, you were about to start and I cut you off at the knees for that for narrative reasons because we were still getting
Yeah,
to it. But who's any damn good? There's a good question for you.
I mean, the Blue Jays have lots of holes. I've never believed in the Red Sox. I mean, Roman Anthony's great, and they have some good individual players. I don't get Alex Cora sometimes, the
Yeah,
decisions he makes. The Yankees have too many holes. I mean, I see lots of flawed teams,
yeah,
like so many flaws. It's like we don't have enough time to go over them all. So it's hard to envision. And all you got to do in the World Series is win 4 out of 7. But I don't. I would be shocked if the National League doesn't win the World Series. I'd be gobsmacked because the 3 or 4 best teams in the league are in the National League, and maybe more. Like you said, Wheeler being gone from Philadelphia, I mean, it kills him.
yeah,
Like Pope for the postseason, and the Mets they're all right. The Brewers are probably they've got a huge run differential. They did just lose McGill, the
yeah.
closer. They have some good bullpen dudes. We'll see. I don't know if Abner Uribe is going to be in the ninth or how that's going to settle itself, but that's not going to be good for them. So you never know what you're going to get with the Dodgers. They have brought some guys up from the minors recently to kind of help with the bullpen situation. But the Twins, since they traded all their relief pitchers, still have a better bullpen than the Dodgers. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so the Dodgers. Well, now's a good time to get into it. So Oleg and I and Praz, but Oleg brought it up. Then I wrote it up in a column this week about it. The Cubs are most likely going to get the runner up in the West as the team they play in the wild card, and
Uh,
probably get them at home. That's close enough. They still might have to go on the road and do it. And Oleg's whole thing was, why wouldn't you want to get the Dodgers right then? And I agree. If you're the Cubs, if your aspiration is to win the World Series, then yes. If you have to play the wild card round, you might as well play the Dodgers then. Only have to beat them twice. Because
Agreed.
if you get them in the next round, you got to beat them 3 times. If you get them in the LCS, you got to beat them 4. And the example I used was the Padres last year. Thought they had them dead to rights.
Mm-hmm.
They were going to knock off the Dodgers for the second straight year, and they had a 2-1 lead. They had Game 4 at home, and they didn't score a run for the rest of the series. They got shut out 8-0 to 2-0, and their season was over. And the Dodgers went on to win the World Series. If the Padres had won one of those 2 games, the Padres probably win the World Series last year. Now the difference this year with the Dodgers might be, but they've got plenty of time for any of these guys to get hurt. But as of right now, their playoff rotation is one they want. They have Yamamoto, Glasnow, Snell, and Shohei, and that basically, I don't know what National League team would have a better matchup against than them in any of those when they face any of those 4 guys. Although with Shohei, how many innings is he going in the?
Yeah, Kershaw has been pitching well. I mean, you get him into the playoffs, and it's a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get, but he's probably going out. I could see him maybe going out on a high note, or maybe not. But
Yeah, it is
he's been
funny.
really good.
He's throwing about 89 miles an hour,
Yeah,
but he's getting guys out, and you almost wonder if he wasn't Clayton Kershaw, if he wouldn't just be like a really effective lefty specialist.
mm.
But he's, one of the greatest pitchers in the history of the franchise. And you wonder if Dave Roberts is going to be like, all right, we're not going to get you any starts, but we're going to, you're going to have to get big outs for us, if he would be, happy with that. But that might be the best use of him in the playoffs,
It could be.
especially since you have to face at least 3 guys. You wouldn't mind giving the ball to Clayton Kershaw to get through 3 batters in a tough spot, but it might be a little rough. I guess if Shohei wasn't in your playoff rotation where you might only get 4 innings out of him, you probably wouldn't care. You just throw Kershaw out and go get through the lineup once or once
Right.
and a half. If you start to get in trouble in the second, in the 4th inning, we'll just go to the bullpen. But you can't, although they did it last year, they were having to run like that Game 4 win over the Padres. Ryan Brazier started it.
Yeah.
They had to go. They used 8 guys to get through that game. So
The Dodgers, though, have not been, and 30 days from now in the playoffs, that's a long time. It's a long time for everybody to stay healthy and whatnot. But it's also time for some of the kids that they brought up from the minor leagues to get into the bullpen. But if the Dodgers don't get a couple more guys between now and October to pitch in relief, which has been a real bugaboo, they're not going to be able to, you know, that Ryan Brazier stuff. I don't know that they're going to be able to repeat that.
No, and looking at it from a Cub fan perspective, the Padres scare the hell out of me. Just because if you don't get a lead on them early, all of a sudden the parade of shutdown relievers can start for them in like the 4th inning.
Right.
And they don't run out of guys. Unless it's one of Mason Miller's rest days, which is every other day. And then they only have 5 instead of 6 of those guys, or whatever ridiculous amount that they have is. So I'd almost rather face the Dodgers than the Padres, just because of that. I could just, it just feels bad. But so if we apply the same logic to the National League that we did to the American League, there's far better teams in the National League, but they all have flaws. And it's, as a Cub fan, it just makes it that much more frustrating that they did what they did at the trade deadline, which was a whole lot of, okay, we're a little better now. They really did have a chance to like grab this thing and make themselves a serious contender, and they just passed on it. And they continue to leak to their friendly writers and whatever. It was just in Jordan Bastian just wrote about it again yesterday or this morning, that trying to trade for a starter, everybody wanted either Matt Shaw or Cade Horton, and he just couldn't do it. It's like, there's no other way to do that trade with this wonderful. All we hear about is how great the Cub farm system is,
right? And
you couldn't cobble together a trade for anybody better. Andrew Kittredge, Taylor Rogers, who's being given away by the Pirates. They basically was like, they left him on the curb with a free sign on him. Said, we do not want to pay this man. Please take him. Because they'd only taken him in the Cabrian Hayes trade because the Reds didn't want to pay him. And they knew they were going to give him to somebody. And then Mike Soroka, who's pitched 2 innings for the Cubs, and that'll be it.
Right.
And Willie Castro. That's what you got. Like Willie's a really nice, useful player, but he's a bench player. He's your, you needed a bat, and Willie Castro is not the bat. You needed a starter, and Mike Soroka wasn't the starter, and that didn't matter. He's hurt anyway. He didn't do a damn thing.
I don't know how you could trade for Soroka and not have any backup plan without, he's probably going to get hurt again, or there's like a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, so when they traded for him, I'm like, all right, well, he's okay, but who's the other guy they're getting? So
that whole trade was really weird to me. Now they did it. It was the first move they made. So I do think the idea was, okay, we've got him, but we're still going after these guys. So he's depth. But they knew, because the national writers knew, he had gotten an MRI because his arm didn't feel right. And the Nationals gave him just for his own edification. Oh, everything's fine. Look at this. It's like, no, they don't do that. They were worried too. But then the trade from the Cubs, usually if there is a deadline trade where there's concern about the health of a player, there's a player named later in the trade. And so if this guy gets hurt, that player named later either becomes nobody or he becomes a very low-level prospect. The Cubs just traded 2 prospects for him. Now, they weren't great, but it's Mike Soroka. What are you going to get for him?
Right.
But they didn't cover themselves that way. So they just were like, sure, we'll just take him. That'll be fine. And he didn't make it to the 3rd inning of his only start as a Cub. He might come back to pitch in the bullpen in September. Sure. We'll hold our breath. Wait for that.
It sounds like you're excited about that possibility too.
I am. I really hope. It's just what we need. That'll put him over the top. And then the Brewers. So maybe I dismissed them because they're the Brewers, but they've had an incredible season. They've had 10 walk-off wins. They had an 11-game winning streak. Then they had a 14-game winning streak. But maybe it's because when they play the Cubs just seem to like handle them, that I don't feel like they're that good.
Right.
Like, this is a plucky team that they've had some ridiculous wins too. To me, the best example of it is all year is going to be a game against the Mets when Kodai Senga with 2 on and 2 outs, strikes out William Contreras to end the inning. But no, it's a pitch violation. Next pitch, 3-run homer. Brewers beat the Mets. I kind of feel like when they get to the playoffs, it's the same old Brewers. It's, they have to string together a bunch of hits to score runs. Typically, playoff games are won by the team that hits a few homers. But like you said, there isn't, everybody's going to have flaws going into the playoffs, and maybe this is the year for the team that is just kind of solid but doesn't have a glaring weakness, and that's enough.
Right.
The one thing that's funny is after all this phenom talk about Jacob Mizorowski and they put him on the All-Star team and they did whatever, and it's like, have anybody noticed that after his third start, he's been bad? His ERA is almost 7. He strikes out a lot of guys, but he walks a lot. And even though he throws 100 miles an hour on almost every pitch, major league hitters have figured out that we can turn that 100 miles an hour right back at you.
Right. Well, that is what it was funny too, because he had come up and there were a couple stories written. It seems like the media is more given to these type things, and I'm thinking of like a Athletic or MLB type writers, MLB.com writers, saying that this guy's going to be the face of pitching, and I'm like, he just got here, and I don't know, I've kind of come to distrust pitchers either in terms of health or in terms of development, because like you say, they come in with the blazing fastball, but eventually the hitters catch up to it if there's not more to it than that. If he's spotty with location or his other pitches aren't 100%, even guys like Joan Duran he was the Twins closer, but he lost a couple miles off his 102.5 mile an hour fastball and had some bad location. And last year he's very hittable, and it's just, it doesn't take much. The guys like Aroldis Chapman are, there's only a few of them in the league, and everyone else, if they're not on their game, is vulnerable no matter how good their stuff is, and it's just all very fleeting. So, he's got a month to figure it out, but he does have a lot of things to figure out.
Yeah. So his first 3 starts, he had a 1.13 ERA. He struck out 19 guys in 16 innings.
Yeah.
And in his 7 starts since, he has a 6.18 ERA, 46 strikeouts in 27 innings. So he's still striking lots of people out, but he's given up 24 hits, 19 earned runs, and walked 14. I think the Cubs have scored 6 runs off of him in 7 innings, I think. Maybe 8. So it's not like he's bad, but they acted like they had unlocked, Dwight Gooden, and holy shit, good luck,
Right.
baseball for the next. It's like, well, no, he's going to strike out a lot of guys, but he's also going to find a way to give you some runs and keep you in it. I don't know. I just feel like every day it feels like it looks like this was more and more of a really good chance for the Cubs that the Cubs weren't that interested in taking. Even after going out and making the Kyle Tucker trade and going, look, we pushed all of our chips in the middle of the old Jim Fossil. All our chips are in the middle of the table. Well, it turns out they only bothered to buy 8 chips. That's what they shoved in the middle. The rest they're just keeping in their pockets. So
it isn't. I'm not trying to take any pressure off the Cubs, but that is still part of the whole. That's the way of thinking of multiple teams.
Yeah,
and it's the Cubs are better than the teams around 500 just trying to get into the they're in the tier of the division leaders in the bottom of it, I guess. But yeah, there were opportunities to give themselves a really good shot to get through a playoff series or 2 or 3, and they half-assed it. And I don't know if it's just a fear of losing any kind of resources that you don't have to pay guys like Owen Casey or whatever, or just a concern about, well, there's going to be a lockout in 2 years, so we don't want to spend any money. Whatever excuse you got.
Yeah. I
There's only so many times you can win a World Series, and this is
right.
one of them. And they
I feel
didn't.
like they don't know what their approach is. Like I would be happier. I wouldn't like it, but I would be happier if the idea was we are going to kind of slowly ramp a team up, and when we think we have a shot for a year or two, we're going to really go for it, and we're going to take our best shot, and then we're going to start the process over again.
Right.
They don't. This seemed to be that if they were ever going to do that, this was the year they would do it, and they didn't. They did a half measure and they quit. I also think that at the deadline, they did intend to do more than they did, but they found out their prospects that they've been touting weren't as interesting to other teams as they thought they were going to be. I think the reason Owen Casey is still a Cub is because the Cubs' expectation for what he could return in trade was a lot more than what other teams were willing to give up for him. And they're convinced that he's really good and like, well, we'll just keep him then. And the
Right.
other teams are like, eh. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. It was in the spring. The Marlins had Jesus Luzardo traded for him. And then the Cubs flunked Luzardo physical. And so the trade didn't happen. And Luzardo ended up going to the Phillies. So there was at least a baseline that was set there. And they apparently couldn't approximate that at the deadline because they didn't get a Jesus Luzardo caliber pitcher at the deadline for Owen.
Well, not to put it on the Cubs again or Casey specifically as a prospect, but on the other side of that, if you look around the league, you saw mostly, you talked about Soroka going to the Cubs, pitchers like that and
Yeah,
maybe a little
yeah.
better starting pitchers moved. The really good starting pitchers who were supposedly available were not moved.
Yeah, none of them went.
The market did not, the perceived cost was too high around the league. So it was that's part of the situation too.
And so when that argument got made, Jed was making that argument 10 minutes after the deadline in his little press conference, where he got congratulated by Bruce Levine for his contract extension.
Oh, yeah.
You could almost see the look on Jed's face like, Bruce, this is not the time for that. No, please, thank you, but no, shut up. And my thought was, if everybody else was backing off, then that seemed like a really good time to pounce and make the offer then and do it, because the offers weren't getting bid up by like two teams hell bent to get this guy, and teams like, oh my God, we can squeeze another prospect out. Everybody was backing off or deciding, fuck it, we'll just get Ryan Helsley instead, with his 11 ERA with the Mets. I'm sure the Mets are very happy about that. But it seemed like there was just one team needed to just like take the step up and go, fine, we're going to add this prospect to it. Can we do this? Let's do it. You're not getting him from anybody else. Nobody else is going to do it. And nobody did it, which is weird to me that not a single one did it. I think my biggest frustration with this Cub regime is that they spend too much to act like this. Like, if you're going to shoot to be an 86 win team, why the hell do you have to pay this much for it? And then if you're going to spend this much, why are you happy with an 86 win team? Why don't you spend a little bit more and actually go act like the big market team that you are? It's completely inefficient use of their resources.
I mean, just getting back to the Kyle Tucker acquisition, you spend all that prospect capital to get him for 1 year. You don't really pursue, or maybe he doesn't want to pursue a contract extension. He wants to wait. I probably would want to wait myself. But you go through all the trouble. You might lose him. You have a window. You're in position now to win, and you don't take the extra step. You put all the time and resources, and you've already spent part of the future on Kyle Tucker. And you're in a situation here. We see the Brewers have 83 wins. The Cubs have 76. That would tell me that the Cubs need to do a little bit more.
Yep.
And it's a half measure, as it turns out. Bringing these guys in and then not taking the extra step to make the team better. It's frustrating from a logical standpoint. You don't even have to be a diehard Cubs fan to feel the frustration. It's like, well, okay, well, make the next move.
My simplistic look at it is, if you don't have enough good players, your payroll is too low. If you can somehow field a team with really good players at $100 million, I don't care. Go get them. Congratulations.
Right.
But if you've got a $280 million payroll and you can't catch the Brewers, then you haven't spent enough. You got to go find more guys. You're just going to have to eat. All of a sudden it's not so cute to pay Dansby Swanson $27 million a year to have him bat eighth. He's a really good defensive shortstop, but there's a reason that, and it was Sam Miller was talking about how the Cubs, this was when the Cubs were in first place. He was talking about how the Cubs do it wrong, but they were being rewarded for it because they're in first place. And what he meant by do it wrong is they're paying the kind of mid-level free agents multi-year deals that other teams won't. Like the Cubs are happy to give Jamison Tyon $18 million a year for 3 years. Other teams look at it and go, why would we pay that? Why would we pay $18 million for that? You can get close to that. It's significantly less and save that money and then go for somebody better.
Right.
And Dansby Swanson, $27 million a year. It falls into that same thing. Yes, it's a good, solid player, but you can get close to that production for a lot less money and then save that money and go for an impact player instead. But the Cubs built this whole roster out of kind of these mid-tier free agents. And that's why getting Tucker, kind of, at least for the first part of the season, it really made it work.
Yeah.
You had all these solid players, but now you had one star who was going nuts at the beginning. And now it's like, see, everything falls into place. The problem is then when he stops hitting for whatever reason, the lineup reverted back to what it is.
Right.
And, maybe he's shown a lot of signs the last few days that he's hitting again. And so maybe that'll turn things around. And maybe Pete Crow Armstrong will finally realize that he's never going to see a strike.
Right.
And he might want to start taking a few walks to start to get a few strikes so he can go back to hitting. But it's just, it's so frustrating because they're close. And they showed it the other day, so like the Brewers come into town and the Cubs take 3 out of the 5 games. And other than the first game where they got beat 7-0, they were the better team than the Brewers in the other 4 games. It was pretty apparent. Like if you didn't know who those teams were going into the games, the team in the pinstripes was a much better team than the other team. And they'd won 8 out of 10. And now they've gone off to San Francisco and they're taking a nap. It's like, okay, we're going to give these back just to make sure we don't have to worry about the division. We'll let the Brewers have a couple of games back. It's frustrating.
Well, they're letting Boog do the pregame speeches. It's like, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter. Just get in the playoffs. Anything can happen. And I don't want to go through my whole screed about how the 23 Diamondbacks ruined it for everybody.
Yeah.
But my contention is that the way they ruined it wasn't their own fault. The 23 Diamondbacks were good. Like that was a good team.
Right.
And for like the first 2.5 months, they were the best team in the National League. And then they had some injuries and they had some bad play and they fell on their ass. But they were a good team. And by the end of the year, they had gotten themselves back together again. And when they got in the playoffs, other teams were like, oh crap, I don't want to play the Diamondbacks. They were an 83 win team that had like 92 or 93 win talent. They didn't build an 83 win team. They built a team that was actually going to win something. But the third wild card basically saved them from a really disappointing season.
Yeah.
Where it's like, God, remember how good we were? And then we had that horrible stretch and we screwed ourselves.
Right.
But owners like Tom Ricketts look at it like, that was a mediocre team that went to the World Series. Like, no, it really wasn't. They were good. And even at the deadline, they bought. They didn't go extravagantly, but they got Paul Sewald. And if they hadn't gotten Paul Sewald, they wouldn't have gone to the World Series. But teams take the lessons that they take from the lessons what they want. And there's a lot of teams in baseball now who are like, just get in the playoffs. Anything can happen. Well, you know what? Usually taking the best team into the playoffs is usually a much better.
Yeah.
Better than taking just any team into the playoffs.
Hey, real quick, did you, I'm sure you, with your more Cubs-centric conversations, I don't care that like Kyle Tucker didn't tell anybody in the media that he had a broken finger, but do you think that the Cubs handled his playing time the right way by keeping him in the lineup with a broken finger?
The broken finger thing is strange because it happened at the beginning of the best month he had with the Cubs. He had a 987 OPS that month with the broken finger. The theory, I guess, is that he unintentionally, while compensating for the broken finger, slowly developed a bad habit with his swing. And one guy was, I don't know if it was Mark DeRosa, somebody wondered if it was like the finish of his swing. Like he was artificially stopping it sooner because that would keep it from his hand extending at the end, and it might keep it from hurting.
Right.
And so maybe that did happen, where he got himself into a funk then that he had to do the hard reset. That was the other weird thing about the Brewers series. The 3 games they won were the ones he didn't play, where they had him in his timeout, sitting on the corner of the bench, staring at the wall, counting to whatever, writing, I will run to first base on a ground ball to the first baseman 1,000 times on the side. Well, I don't know. And it could just be, there's a lot of things. I kind of wondered if maybe you get to a certain point in the year and it's your free agent year and everybody's talking about you getting $500 million, and you start to think, whoa, maybe if I hit a few more homers, I can get even more than that. And all of a sudden, then you start to worry, am I screwing this up? There's a lot of stuff that could go into what it was. Then there's the whole theory that he hits a lot better on the road than at Wrigley, but everybody does, because Wrigley is for the second year in a row is not like an offensive haven.
Yeah.
And there's somebody that is convinced it's because of Gallagher Way. I forget who it is. Somebody brings it up all the time. Well, they built that building. It's like John Heyman or somebody. Well, they built that building, over on the third base side, and I think it changed the wind pattern. It's like, no, if anything changed the wind patterns, it would be the scoreboards.
Right.
And in theory, that should help, because when the wind blows in, if you keep the ball low, you can actually get it out. So I think that's just bullshit. But there could be a lot of things that went into it. But the Cubs, if you give the Cubs training staff any way to fuck up, they will fuck up. They are historically inept. It's to the point where we have no faith in them. It's a constant joke, is whenever a player gets hurt, it's always X-rays are negative.
Right.
Doesn't need to go on the injured list. 3 days later, well, he's day to day. Then after like 12 days, we're going to put him on the injured list for precautionary reasons, but he'll be back, minimum stay. It's like, well, we already played without him for, this long. And then, his season's over. That's the progression of every Cub injury, is that.
Where
so I don't know.
Tony Garofalo.
Well, I would like to know. That's right. What I would like to know, though, is where the leak of the broken finger came from. Was it from Kyle? Because it seemed like that really should have come from like Kyle's agent.
Yeah.
While he's on time, he had a broken finger. They knew it. They knew he had a broken finger, and they made him play through it, because that doesn't seem like a thing the Cubs would just voluntarily throw out then. So I don't know. So this was a thing that happened. It doesn't need this setup. I'm going to give it anyway. So for whatever reason, baseball decided, how the NFL, when they do the schedule release, they like literally do it. They do it during the off season, and they actually tease at the draft. They teased when the schedule was going to be released. Like it was an event. And then every team puts together their fun little social media videos. Some of them are, like the Chargers are amazing. San Diego Chargers, the LA Chargers, they do the best ones. And they usually make fun of all the other teams in their thing. Sometimes very personal ways. But baseball, not quite as savvy, just throws the schedule out on a Tuesday afternoon in August for some reason. And so I did the thing that I was pretending like I went through and did win-loss for all 162. And I figured 76 and 86. And then Praz replied to it with 7 and 155, as long as they win the season series against the Brewers. And I thought, number one, it's sad that he picked the bare minimum number of wins to beat the Brewers. But then I got to thinking, oh my God, that there's a generation of Cub fans now that think the Brewers are the rival. Right. And it really bothers me. And there's only one entity to blame. And it's the fucking Cardinals. It's their fault. Like the Brewers and Cubs, it's not a rivalry. It's a geographic coincidence is basically all it is. Bud had to switch leagues to try to make this into something, because he couldn't, there was no rivalry with the White Sox. So he's going to try to get one with the Cubs. And the biggest issue I have with it is, there is no team in sports that I hate more than the St. Louis Cardinals. They earned it over decades of just, they were always good and they were assholes. Their team was full of assholes. And when they started to run out of assholes, they went and got more assholes. Like there was a time when the Whitey Herzog Cardinals had fallen apart, and you had like Joe Torre and Mike Jorgensen managing. I was like, it's the Cardinals. There was no reason to hate them. What did they do? They got Tony La Russa. They basically said, all right, who's the biggest prick we could possibly find? Oh, let's get Tony. And it immediately turned things around again. And then they had Jim Edmonds, who everybody hated Jim Edmonds. He was a preening asshole who used to slow down and dive at balls so he could get on SportsCenter more often. And then Albert Pujols comes up and it's like, look at this 21-year-old phenom. It's like, he's 37 years old. Yeah, he's good, but he's old. Don't tell me how young he is. I don't care. And then we were even talking about, we went back to like, so when I was a kid, the Cardinals were their number one rival, but there was a huge rivalry with the Mets. A lot of it was a hangover. Like our parents still had the scar tissue from 69. But then when I was a kid, like the 84 Cubs, 84 Mets were really good.
Yep.
And then it became the 85. And then, of course, the infamous 86 Mets. And those guys, you hated every single guy on that team. They were horrible people. And even the Phillies had guys like, well, Mike Schmidt was, seemed like a nice guy, but he hit 3 homers every game against the Cubs. So you hated Mike Schmidt. But then when they were worried that maybe there weren't enough detestable idiots on their team, they got Pete Rose and Joe Morgan just for fun. And but that's my problem with the Brewers. Is like, these are all little scrappy guys who are going to be gone. And there's going to be a new batch of them in 2 years. Yeah. You won't even, I still don't know the difference between Sal Frelick and Bryce Terang. I don't know which one plays where. I don't know which one is which. I don't care. And I'm not going to bother to learn, because in 2 years, one of them's going to be working at Dairy Queen and the other one's going to be playing for like the Mets. So why I can't even build up an attachment. So basically we had Ryan Braun to hate. Hated him so much that he accused the piss test guy of framing him because he was a Cub fan. So that's good stuff. Like, okay, we can work with that. But we replace him with Christian Yelich, who, there's nothing there.
Right.
He's a pretty good player, but he's, big deal other than palling around with Aaron Rodgers and being weird, owning the Bucks or whatever that they bought. They both bought 4 shares of the Bucks. There's nothing there. So this is a problem with the Cardinals, right? You have to, I don't want you to ever win anything again, but you have to at least get good enough so that there's a rivalry again. Because there isn't, I'm never going to be able to work one up for the Brewers.
On the one hand, it's, you should be encouraged that Chaim Bloom is in the waiting in the wings to Mozeliak's replacement. On the other hand, what's not encouraging is the DeWitts thinking, they are a small market team apparently with money. So will they put up the expenditures to make the difference, be it in free agents or what player development? I don't care.
No, I think the switch to Bloom telegraphs they're going to try to be the Brewers. They're going to try to win that way. We don't need to spend all this money on these players. Look at this. The Brewers do it. The Rays do it. We just need to do that.
I feel that Bloom was fired from the Red Sox, though, for spending too much money. So, I mean, maybe he won't make that mistake again, but...
didn't they do weird stuff to him, though? Like, they basically... He's the one who traded Mookie, right?
Yeah, but that was an ownership.
That's what I mean. Like, the owners did weird stuff to him. Like, okay, you can't keep him, but then, okay, we're not as relevant, so now go spend some money. And they did to Theo, where it was like, all right, they remember the infamous meeting where they told him that Nesson's ratings were down and the Red Sox needed to go get like stars.
Yeah.
So they went and made the deals for like Carl Crawford and Adrian Gonzalez or whatever. And then they were like, this team sucks. I said, yeah, they weren't guys we wanted. We went and got them because you wanted us to get them. So I kind of feel like Chaim, I think they'll let him operate the way he's more comfortable operating. I think that was the attraction to him, is that we just want like a medium payroll. What can you do with this? And he's like, oh, I can work wonders with this. It's like, well, that's another thing that's going to frustrate me with the Cubs. If the Cardinals and Brewers remain competitive with the Cubs, it's because the Cubs are trying to take advantage of the fact that nobody's really spending in the division, so they don't need to.
Right.
Like, they don't have anybody to push them. And then, even if they had somebody to push them, the fact that there's 6 playoff spots, I don't think the Ricketts would, they would just fall down with the push. They wouldn't bother to push back. Like, oh, it's fine. We'll get one of those spots. And then anything can happen.
How do you feel about radical realignment, where the Cubs and Sox go together in the same division and the National League and the American League are eradicated?
I don't like it at all. I think it's dumb. I don't mind the geographic realignment within the, I do. I think going to more divisions is dumb. I think they should go to 2 leagues. You should do it like the Eastern and Western Conference in the NBA. This should just be the good old the National League and the American League, and the top 6 teams in both leagues make the playoffs, and that we're going to go from there. And not, well, we're the Cubs and we're in the Central, and so we don't have to worry about and having more wins than the Mets or the Phillies or the Dodgers. I want you to have to worry about it. I want you to have to be in one league where, we might not be the 6th best team. We might have to spend some money and do it. But I don't like the idea that, baseball it's funny. It's this game of tradition where they just can't seem to wait to get rid of as many of the traditions as they possibly can. And the minimal one is to keep the 2 leagues. The Mets and it's fine now. The Mets and the Yankees play all the time, play every year. The Cubs and the White Sox play every year. All that happens. But there's still a unique thing if you end up somehow with the 2 of them in the World Series against each other.
Yeah.
And I just think it's dumb if, I'm sure Jerry Reinsdorf would love it. Although, what does he care? He's, as soon as he dies, one of the Ishbias gets to run the team. But he would love it because if it was up to him, the Sox schedule would be 100 games against the Cubs and then 62 against everybody else because he could actually sell some tickets. I would just really hate it if they did that. Like, we play, and it's not. That's the other thing, right? If interleague is taught anything, it quickly sucks the novelty out of it.
Yeah.
Like Cubs and White Sox games are just games now.
Right.
It's just, we always play them. Big deal. You put them in the same league, in the same division, and you're just going to get more of that. The whole familiarity breeds contempt. It really breeds indifference more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it would work. I think it would hurt them in the long run. They need the artificial separation of the leagues to keep some kind of intrigue if they ever play for anything important.
The only thing about that is, maybe that's true for the cities with the 2 teams in them, but I don't know if it is as true for the league at large. Maybe it's keeping the Mets and the Yankees separate and so forth is the way to go. But I don't know. I feel like the changes that they're all talking about aren't for people like us who like the league the way it is.
Yeah.
And has been. I don't know if they're going for the margins, or maybe they think there's untapped fans out there, or the future fans won't pay attention unless we make these radical changes. I'm not sure about their marketing research, but I keep these changes that they propose and make, in mind in that way, that's not for me because I'm fine with what we have right now. But I also haven't really put any effort into studying. It's not really my field either. How could you draw more fans if you did this and made these kind of changes? So, Manfred's hitting, he's hit or miss with his changes.
Yeah.
Some of them have been, pitch clock's been good, but the runner on second is dumb. And I don't think the playoffs thing works.
No.
So the White Sox and the Cubs going for the same playoff spots, that might have some pull. I don't know. In terms of getting Reinsdorf to spend some money, or the Cubs to spend some money to get the upper hand on the team across town, maybe that is something that would be changed if they were in the same division.
Yeah, I just think that if you keep the playoff spots at the number, or then they even talk about, we'll have to go to 8 then. Well, if you go to 8, if you go so half of each league is making it, then there's no incentive to spend money. You just have to. Everybody's shooting for bare minimum then at that point. I don't know. I know why they do. I know why they want to go to the divisions. That allows them then to have 4 division winners and 4 wild cards. It makes it cleaner. But it's just more then it really, because it's almost like these little pods of teams that are playing each other. Way too Champions League-y to me then. And one thing you don't want to emulate is the UEFA Champions League. Just don't. I don't know. I think the least intrusive thing that happens when a lot of the realignments I've seen is that the Rockies get booted to the American League to try to make it the West a little more geographically common sense. I wouldn't care. I'd be fine if they sent the Rockies to the International League, and it would be cool. I feel like that's a failed experiment. You can't play baseball on the moon. It screws everything up. It's one of my
Yeah, but it's like the bananas. They draw better than everybody else.
it's like one of my favorite things was when so Dwayne Kuiper, the announcer for the Giants, when he thought the Giants were going to get sold and moved to Tampa, he was worried about his job, and he had little kids, and he hadn't made a lot of money as a player, and the Rockies offered him the play-by-play job, so he took it. So he left. And after a year, he was miserable. And and Peter McGowan and his group got the Giants and basically said to Dwayne, "We're not moving. You want to come back?" And he's like, "Yes, please. This is not baseball. I don't know what the hell goes on in Colorado, but it's not baseball." And he came back, and then later when he redid a contract, he got written in his contract that he didn't have to go do the Giants games in Colorado. So he just, even long before he cut his travel back to what it is now, he had cut the Rockies out of his schedule. He's like, I saw enough games there. I don't ever want to go back. And he refused to go to Colorado to announce games.
Did he need to bring oxygen to the booth with him? Is that one of the issues?
Probably. All right. Well, this is fun. And when we do this again in 2 weeks, God, the playoffs will be just 2 weeks away.
It's happening soon, isn't it?
The season has flown by. And I'm sure the Cubs will have won half their games between now and then and be in the same spot they're in now. It's like, well, the last 2 nights, as soon as I fell behind, it's like, why am I watching? There's no stakes anymore. We know where they're going.
Right.
That's what the extra playoff spots did. The owners couldn't understand why the players didn't love it. So the players knew that the more spots there were for you, the less money, the less inclined you were going to be to spend on them. That's what they knew. And I don't know. The biggest thing they like to do is they claim that, well, there's all these teams that are still in it. But I mean, are fans still buying tickets to go to see the teams on the fringes? Because most of them really aren't on the fringes anymore. I don't know.
I don't know for a fact, but it does not seem like there's. I mean, there are cases where there's buzz, but I don't know if there's. It's hard to prove a negative. So, if we didn't have, would people still be going to Royals games? If they weren't.
I think if there's 2 teams right now that you could, if you argued enough with their fans, you could convince them that they should still be going, are the Reds and the Royals.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't know how you could make a case to any other team that they're either in it or out of it by now. There's like 2 teams left in the, maybe the Rangers, because they won a World Series a couple years ago. You could probably convince them they could go on a run and make it. But all this effort so that on the 28th of August, you could maybe convince 3 more fan bases whose teams aren't already in a playoff spot that they should pay attention. It doesn't seem to be that exciting. And now, so ESPN's going to have the wild card round this year and then never again. Get ready to watch playoff games on Peacock next year. Oh, I'm sure fans are going to bitch about that. That'll be great.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Dave.
Okay, Andy.
Many of us have herpes.
Post-game show is brought to you by Christ, I can't find it. The hell with it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. I mean, got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Thank you. Sir. Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much, awesome. Andy.